stop saving every month, but your money just doesn't seem to grow? Like you're pushing a huge boulder uphill and it barely moves? That's the story for most people who are trying to build a portfolio, until one day, everything changes. There's this idea that if you just save and invest long enough, eventually your money starts working harder than you do. But what most people don't realize is that there's not just one moment when this happens. There are actually 3 key tipping points that completely change your relationship with money. Everyone struggles in the early stages of wealth building because the returns are small and the effort feels enormous. You're working hard, cutting expenses, investing diligently, and in return, you're earning what feels like peanuts. That $10,000 portfolio goes up by 7% and you're looking at $700. It barely feels like progress. But that's because you're still carrying most of the weight. You're the engine. The portfolio is just along for the ride. But over time, if you keep at it, something incredible starts to happen. Your money begins to take over, and that shift doesn't happen all at once, it happens in stages. Let's walk through them one by one. The first tipping point is when your investments earn more in a typical year than you contribute. This one might sound subtle, but it's actually huge. Think about it. When you're first starting out, almost all of your portfolio's growth comes from you. You're putting in $200, $300, or $500 a month. Your investments might go up by a few percent, while the dollar amounts aren't even noticeable. Most of the increase is from you continuing to deposit money. Let's say you're investing $6,000 per year. Early on, if you have $10,000 invested and it grows 10%, that's only $1,000. Spread out over 1 year, you're not even going to notice any upward movement. You added way more money than your portfolio did. But fast forward a few years, and your investments hit $100,000. Now that same 10% return means $10,000 of growth, far more than your $6,000 contribution. Your money officially outperformed you. That's the first moment when the engine starts to run on something other than your own fuel. The second tipping point is even more powerful. It's when your investments earn as much as your actual job pays. If you make $50,000 a year and your portfolio of around $500,000 grows by 10%, that's also $50,000. This is where things start to feel real, because now you've cloned your income. Your coworker who makes the same amount as you but doesn't have any investments, you're making twice as much as them. You have a second you out there, working silently and efficiently, but without the emails, the meetings, the stress, or the commute. And the best part is that the following year, your second you is getting a raise. This changes your entire relationship with work. You're not going to feel trapped anymore. You could walk away from your toxic workplace and your lifestyle wouldn't immediately change. Even if you don't quit, you might negotiate harder for higher pay, take the time off you've earned, or start focusing on work that's a little more fulfilling instead of seeing it just as a way to pay the bills. Suddenly, the fear of losing your job doesn't hang over your head the same way, because you know your investments have your back. Then there's the third tipping point, the final stage, when your portfolio is large enough to support a 4 or 5% withdrawal rate. This is when you cross into true financial independence. If your portfolio is $1,250,000, 4% is $50,000. That's income for the rest of your life, without drawing down the principal. It's no longer some fantasy retirement years down the line. This is the moment when your money can replace your full-time job. Imagine waking up and deciding what you want to do that day. Not because you have to clock in, but because you want to. You might still choose to work. A lot of people do. But now it's your choice and not a requirement. You could stop saving entirely and still grow wealthier, just from the returns alone. At this point, your portfolio becomes a self-sustaining machine. And what's most surprising is how fast things move once you hit this threshold. You've been saving for years, clawing your way towards $100,000, $500,000, $700,000, and then suddenly you're at $1 million. And just a few years later, you're at $2 million. It seems impossible until it happens. But once your money is compounding faster than you can spend it, the growth becomes exponential. Let's go back and take a closer look at the first tipping point again, because it's so easy to miss. The earliest years of investing feel slow on purpose. The numbers barely move. You might feel like you're doing everything right. Saving consistently, maxing out a Roth IRA, putting your money into a 401k, but your net worth seems to creep up like molasses. It's discouraging. It makes you wonder if you're ever going to get where you need to be. You're wondering, will I ever be a millionaire? Will I ever be able to retire? It feels so far away when your portfolio doesn't grow in a meaningful amount. Most people throw in the towel before they see meaningful progress. But the truth is, the first $100,000 is the hardest for a reason. You're mostly building the base. It's like doing all the excavation, permitting, planning, and site work before you begin putting a building up. Once you get past that point, the math starts to work in your favor. Compound interest has a funny way of being incredibly slow before it gets insanely fast. Charlie Munger famously claimed that the first $100,000 is the hardest, and it's still true today, because after that, things finally start to move. At $100,000 growing 10%, you're seeing $10,000 per year in gains without lifting a finger. At $200,000, it's $20,000. At $400,000, it's $40,000, and so on. With each passing year, your average return grows larger, even if you keep your contributions the same or stop contributing entirely. Chances are your contributions will increase over time, not because you're being overly frugal, but simply because that's how things tend to go. As people move forward in their careers, their income usually grows, and it becomes easier to bump up contributions gradually without even feeling it. The second tipping point, the one where your portfolio out-earns your job, can hit at different times depending on your income. If you make $40,000, you might hit it with a $400,000 portfolio. If you make $100,000, it might take $1 million. Either way, this milestone has a psychological weight to it that can't be overstated. Your money is now your colleague. Your portfolio is working right beside you, and it doesn't take coffee breaks. Here's the thing. Most people never get to this point because they give up before compounding has a chance to show what it can do. They save for a few years, get frustrated, have an emergency, or an excuse to use the money and stop. They think the growth is supposed to be instant. It's understandable. Not everyone can see the exponential returns waiting at the end of the tunnel. To most people, it just looks like a long, dark stretch with no clear payoff. But what they miss is that the light isn't just at the end. It starts to grow with every step you take forward. Eventually, the tunnel opens up faster than you ever expected. When you hit the third tipping point, something strange happens. You stop stressing about money. Not because you suddenly have so much of it, but because you've seen how fast it can grow once the compound machine is running. You realize that time is on your side. You no longer feel the need to chase every dollar because the dollars are now chasing you. At this point, it's not uncommon for your portfolio to grow more in a single year than you ever earned at your peak salary. What's really mind-blowing is how quickly it can double. With an average return of 10% annually, a portfolio, whether it's $500,000 or $5 million, will double roughly every 7 years. That's the power of compounding on a large scale, and if you're only withdrawing 4% while your investments continue to grow at 8 or 10%, you're not just holding onto your wealth, you're still building it. You've entered that elite territory where your net worth keeps rising, even during retirement. Now let's be real, these tipping points don't happen overnight. They take discipline, consistency, and a willingness to play the long game. You'll go through market dips, which are sometimes seemingly never-ending, job changes, unplanned expenses that set you back months or years, and personal doubts. You'll wonder if you're doing enough. But if you keep going, if you stay invested, even when it's boring or scary, you will reach the point where your money is doing the heavy lifting. And when you reach that point, it stops being just about money. It's about freedom. The freedom to decide how you spend your time, to say no without fear, to work because it fulfills you, not because you need the money to pay rent. That's the real reward of financial independence. Some people will get there in their 30s, others in their 40s, 50s, or even 60s. Some will never get there. The exact timing isn't what matters. What matters is staying in the game long enough for compound growth to take over. You have to stick around for the part of the story where things finally take off. So if you're still in the slow climb, still wondering if it's even worth it, don't stop. That uphill struggle doesn't last forever. Eventually, you'll stop pushing the rock up the hill and start watching the momentum build. The tipping point isn't magic. It's time-tested math fueled by patience. But when it hits, it feels like magic. Stay the course. Your tipping point is coming.